Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. This is your host, Flame Upon Herb. I'm here with the illustrious Yakov.
What's up, guys? Welcome to my Minecraft Let's Play.
I'm here with Matt,
What up, guys? Man, it's a pleasure to be here.
and we got here a special guest, RedColoured. So I heard you guys spooky story for us tonight.
So this is probably one of my earliest fucking memories. So my dad is a contractor, so sometimes he has to travel out of town for weeks on end. With that in mind, I was just a toddler at the time wandering around the house. And then I was looking in one of the rooms and I noticed a tall man just doing laundry on one of the beds. Like, it seemed like he was folding laundry.
Was there
I couldn't tell any
laundry?
features. Yes, there was laundry, like he was moving it around. But I couldn't see any of the features of the man, and he was all dark and shadowy, and closest thing I could say to it was or the features looked exactly like how shadow men are described.
Okay,
So
but now it's a very mundane action for a shadow person, which is in theory some sort of supernatural being, not necessarily a ghost. Did you get ghost vibes from it, or is it kind of overlapping?
I didn't really get ghost vibes at all. I was a very timid toddler at the time, but I just saw that guy,
Mm.
didn't question anything, and then I just ran to my mother and I said, "Dad's home," because I saw a tall man, even though it was a shadowy creature, and I was like, "Hey, that must be Dad then. No one else would be in this house."
That,
And
that's very
when
common.
I came
That's very,
back, there
very
was
common.
there was no one there. It was the whole room was empty. The whole house was empty, other than me and my mother.
So, I mean, do you have any idea? So you're going with like shadow person on this, correct? So do you have any idea what would create that occurrence, like within your vicinity? Because a lot of times you hear about like a negative vibe in a household, something like that.
I'm not really sure what could have brought it on. It was a house we were renting at the time. As far as I know, it was relatively recently constructed, so nothing really spooky going on there. It
Gotcha.
was
See,
just a
someone close to me that I know, they have seen a shadow person, and they had a death in their family when they were young, and they thought that they were seeing the ghost of that person. And in my mind, like I don't think your loved ones come back to play spooky jokes on you. I don't think that's what like ghosts of our relatives, the people we care about. I don't think that's what they do. I think there are other things that would like to make you think that's who they are, perhaps. And
Mm-hmm.
I think especially regarding this case that I'm talking about, where there's a death in the family and it's very, very tragic, there is a lot of negative emotions going on. And sometimes it's seen as like that's what kind of manifests those sort of beings, as if they're attracted to it, or maybe they're some sort of mind form or something like that. If either Matt or Flame have any takes on that, feel free.
I actually do, and I was stewing about this the entire time he was talking. And he Red, you don't have to like be super illicit in where you live, but do you live in an area
Explicit.
that used to be
Sorry.
yeah, explicit, sorry. Um, do you live in a place that used to be a home to the Native American peoples?
I mean, all of Canada is rightful Injun clay, but that particular area wasn't special in any way.
Okay. Because I like when I always think about hauntings, especially if it's nothing that had been something for like passed down through generations, family kind of things. And I don't know if yours has. Has your family been in the same plot of land for several generations?
No, at the time we were living in an area. I'm fine with sharing it. That was Nanaimo at the time. It's
Hmm.
probably the biggest area in Vancouver Island, other than the capital of BC.
Oh
I got,
shit,
I
Vancouver Island?
Yep.
so I got
Oh,
here a
okay.
question. So when that situation occurred, like what else happened? Were there any repercussions after that? Was this something seen again? Like what?
No, I've never seen it again. I immediately got my mom to come see who was there. When we got there, my mom was like, "No one's there,
I
just your imagination."
I sometimes I me personally I believe that shadow people aren't just only inherently like negative creatures. Like there could be the aspect of the jinn or like fae folk where these things could probably be like these other beings that are living beyond the veil, and this could be like one of those individuals that just like happen to cross in your house. I guess for maybe so as a young child, like you're more prone to seeing things that others can't see. Maybe you could have seen a glimpse of this individual within his own living space, because like we had to think like these things are living their own lives. They probably go to work and go, deal with their own families and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
They're living their best lives.
They're
well, that's
trying.
an aspect of the Fae that a lot of people overlooked, is that they they have their own lives. They're not just like a mystical force that's just waiting in the woods, just chilling there, waiting for somebody to just come by. Like they're living a life. Like they wake up, they eat, they sleep, but whatever like thing that they go through in their realm. I don't know. It didn't really sound like it was malevolent from your story. You're saying this man's just doing laundry, he's hanging out in his own house or something like that.
Well, here's another thing. And I asked about the laundry previously. You said there
Yeah.
was laundry there. Was it there when he was gone?
Now that's the thing I can't remember. I don't remember that as vividly. I just came back and there was nothing there anymore. An empty bedroom.
Oh.
So hard to say. On the fairy aspect, though, I will say that we do have our what I would say is an equivalent. We call them the little people. And there are stories all throughout North America regarding that. I'd get
Yeah.
into some, but maybe that's for another time because I
I,
really do
I,
any research on it.
when
Well,
it
I
comes
would
to
like to
little
say
people,
it's
here.
really interesting that you mentioned little people because, and are you on the East or West Coast? I honestly don't know where that is.
West Coast.
Oh, West Coast. Okay. Well, it's really interesting because off the East Coast, a few hundred or maybe 1,000 miles is Iceland. And in Iceland, they call their little fae or whatever you want to call them, they call them the little people too, because they're little either trolls or whatever they are.
I have a
And it's
theory
really
that
okay.
the little label, it doesn't necessarily mean small. It means, what's a
Yeah.
better
I
word?
concur with that.
Diminutive. The secondary is, I think, what it kind of implies. The other ones who aren't us.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
a
I can see
lesser
that.
importance is, I think, what it signifies sometimes.
Yeah. Like yeah, like you said, a secondary.
Yes.
And that's been a big thing throughout lots of especially the farther north cultures is they have these like little people, secondary people, whatever you want to call them, and they're not seen because I know in Iceland they have like they think that they live in boulders, correct?
There's always rocks involved in this, and
Always
I
Yeah,
went
rocks.
over a story.
that's one thing I really want to probably get to know more about. Is there is there more that you could tell us about Yakov
Well,
with
I
the
did a
rock?
story today, and I'll just give you the short form because I'm gonna have the full story in some other format. But there was a kid who, as a child, he found himself communicating with a disembodied voice. And he didn't
Hmm.
really think anything of it because he was so young, and it ended up being almost like an imaginary friend. He would talk to it, he would play with it, he would do all the things that a kid would do with their friend. But to him, the voice was very, very real, and nobody believed him. But one day, the voice told the kid to go find him a rock for a home, to make him a home, and he had to go
What?
get a
Oh.
rock. And in order to make it a home, the kid had to paint it with finger paints. And I don't know what the significance of that is. I feel like it's putting some sort of living essence, some sort of mind manifestation onto the object as a home, as something that's owned, something that's meant for a being.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the voice found its home in the rock, and he never heard from it again.
What? Damn.
Huh.
I'd be
That's
pissed.
wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. It's the sort of thing like I can't even imagine making up that story, especially without any connotations to fairies or anything like that. Because if you're actually into this stuff, you would know all of those things. You would have that in the
Yeah.
story.
If I told the story to somebody that's not initiated into like the occult or the fae shit, if you would have told me that years ago, I would have probably should. I would have been like, what?
Yeah.
But you tell me that now, I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. So Red, I think
Dude, that's crazy.
around a
Well-
similar time in your life, I think you had another vision of a supposed ghost, maybe.
Just one more thing on the little
Yeah.
people and the boulders, though. The thing about the West Coast, specifically Cascadia, is if you've ever been there, you'll realize it's nothing but rocks. Like there's a bit of trees and forest on them, but we're mostly mountains around here.
Yeah.
So that's prime real estate for little people, I guess.
Do you think like they could be like in crystals? Is that like why people like crystals?
People, they do say that
Okay,
it's
research.
the geometric patterns within the crystals that channel energy and spirits. I guess that applies to all rocks in some form or another.
That's interesting. We need to dive into this. We need to get the research teams together.
Well, something else about that I've noticed when like going into deeper research about this stuff is that not only is it well, sorry, I should backtrack a little bit. If you think about the Americas, North and South America, Central America, all that different stuff, people have been saying recently that they think there might be something to do with how the Native Americans behaved when they either contracted with different tribes or all the other different things, because they used to be pretty brutal with each other. And if you think about the way that, let's say you have a house that's haunted, quote unquote, like the residual energy of those spirits will stay there. And it could be the same thing with the rocks,
Well,
because lots of
that's-
Native American tribes literally would once they conquered certain tribes, they would just kill them in the most brutal ways possible. So those spirits could be staying in those anything that had to do with any kind of metal. You know what I'm saying?
I do want to elaborate on that. Like,
Okay.
we're talking about South American Indians. The Aztecs actually did practice that, and they did document this. They actually used crystal quartz. They made these. I'm guessing you guys seen like this. What are they? The skulls. They're crystal skulls. Yeah,
I've had the vodka. It's great.
yeah. So like they had
I've
these
listened to Mastodon. It's very good. Yes.
So they have these crystal skulls now. There's a lot of fake crystal skulls. So the ones that really are like very nicely made, obviously are fake, but there are some authentic crystal skulls taken from Aztec burial sites and pyramids and stuff like that. And so what would they use this the crystal skull for is after they would do a sacrifice, taking the heart out, they will place the crystal skull in the cavity. Now that this, like you were saying, like getting a residual energy, like they believe that taking that crystal skull, doing that sacrifice and getting that energy flowing and putting it into the crystal skull would save that sacrifice as like I guess like a memory or like a notch on the belt, as I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like that belief, I definitely believe that it's very uncanny. It's very strange. I've recently found that out myself. So that apparently that's a thing that I guess a lot of people don't know, or maybe they write off as like Hollywood bullshit, something like that.
Well, people could write stuff off like that as like hocus pocus bullshit, but they believed in it, and I don't see any reason why it couldn't be real.
It's the
So
belief that
whatever.
makes something real. That's
Yeah.
what I subscribe to. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Red, do you have any comments on any of this? We've gone horribly off topic, but
No, that's all.
okay. Well, let's move on to the next experience. Let's get back into the content here.
Okay, so this next story, I was about 6 or 7. So I was with my brother. It was well past our bedtime, and we opened our door so the hallway light would come in and we could play with our coloring books. We were little shits. So while we were doing that, I just got this urge to look behind me. So I did, and clear as day, despite the room being very dark, I saw a red coat, like the full British uniform with a musket, just marching straight across the room, just marched
Wow.
straight through the walls and out of it. And I would have normally chalked that up to just childhood imagination. But the thing was, I was a very sheltered and unlearned kid. So I didn't know what a redcoat was until I read a Scooby-Doo book called Scooby-Doo and the Fairground Phantom. So that's when I first learned what a redcoat was, and I was like, that is exactly the ghost that I saw.
So what was the what's the history on that? I think you had mentioned what was there a battle that had taken place there, something like that, or
No, that's the very strange thing about it is that, as far as I know, by the time white people got to BC, there was it wasn't white or redcoats anymore.
yeah, I would think out on the West Coast. That's why I couldn't quite place it. And the thing is, to me, I immediately jumped to fucking like Revolutionary War ghosts and everything because that's a very common thing. So this almost seems kind of out of place. Well, on the one hand, it seems far more human than your previous experience in the way that it didn't even recognize your house. It sounds like it was just on its own area where it existed, and it didn't even notice you, and you shouldn't have noticed it. So that's to me more convincingly a ghost, someone who had lived.
Very interesting.
Yep. Still don't know what he was doing marching around in the Vancouver Island, though.
Yeah.
So the British never controlled it at any point?
So there is, I can't remember the exact term for it. There is a certain idea that some people like to talk about is, let's say if you're thinking about, ghosts or whatever you want to call them being caught up in different dimensions, people say that there's the idea that multiple dimensions on themselves. But let's say during the Revolutionary War, if the Earth was turned a little bit, you know what I'm saying?
Nigga.
Like, people have said this.
Yeah, Jesse, what the fuck are you talking about?
Oh, maybe as the Earth turns, all the ghosts slightly shift as we move through space.
That's
Eventually,
not what I'm saying.
But the thing is, we're never in the same spot in space, so eventually there's gonna be Civil War ghosts on fucking Venus.
Shit, dude.
That's not what no, I'm sorry, I didn't explain that properly. I'm so sorry. No, what I mean is like the Earth will be at different like axis points if they were different dimensions underlining each other. So that would mean, maybe some of these redcoats, which were the Revolutionary War English, would have been at a different axis point, like the axis of the Earth and the different points.
Yeah, the axis of evil. Yeah, I'm with you.
Oh my god, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
Come on.
yeah.
What else you got for me, Red? Let's move this along.
All right, so this next story, this is when I moved on to the res, and I was about 10 or 11 at the time. Me and my brother were in our room, and we just saw this flashing blue light. There was no thunder, no lightning, and nothing of the sort that we could find out. And the window where the flashing was coming from was about 8 to 10 feet off the ground. So it wasn't a person standing there taking pictures. And we immediately told our parents about this, and they went outside to look around the house to see if there was any people wandering around taking pictures or something. and there was no one out there. And the flashing kept going after they left. Just really have no explanation for that. But in hindsight, I do remember listening to, I'm not sure what it was, but flashing blue lights, or was it a UFO thing, or
They're incredibly
Not really
common
sure.
in many different situations. Usually they're lumped in with like UFOs and Bigfoot and all of that. The one thing I think like orbs, that sort of thing, lights that are just floating around, that is probably, in my experience at least, like the most common childhood sighting. Like I've seen that.
Yeah,
I've been laying in my room
yeah.
and seen that as a child. I remember walking into my basement, my dark basement as a child. I'm going to play some Super Nintendo. I didn't turn the light on yet. I remember a blue orb just like fucking passing through me. And like I haven't experienced any of this stuff probably since I was under 10 years old. But I do remember experiencing these things.
I've experienced it recently, a couple months ago, while driving down in New Mexico. I saw I really thought it was like an insect or a bug at first, but like yet again, a bug can't be that goddamn big. Like this, at least like a basketball size.
See,
I saw this thing flying right by my truck. Freaked me the hell out.
so it is definitely hard to place this stuff when you could say ghost, you could say aliens, you could say Bigfoot, you could say pedophile in the window, you could say any of these things really. You could be on LimeWire and suddenly someone could be watching you.
Are we're live right now?
No, we're not live.
Okay.
So what was the next
You know-
one? Oh, go on, man.
Oh, sorry.
Go.
I was just gonna say it's really interesting, and I wish that there was a way to like figure out why that like. Well, I think I actually do have an idea of why, of how children of a certain age are way more susceptible to seeing things like this, and it's really fascinating. Because I've had experiences myself, and like I haven't had any real experience in years like that past like seeing a UFO, but it's really interesting how children just have this propensity to see these things, and not just because the imagination part, but just like being able to describe things that are quote unquote like you know what I'm saying. Like
I do love these childhood stories, and I think part of it is that you have so much time to add significance to the story as you grow up. I think I want to say honestly, and I think this applies to everybody. These stories that you remember as a child, first of all, the experience is bigger because you were smaller. But then as you go over it in your mind, I think people tend to slightly exaggerate things until it's just a really good story. So I think there's an element of that going on. It's not to say it's fake. It's just I think you remember things differently now than you experienced them as a child. You've gone over them so many times in your head. It's kind of the idea of like you got an axe. You replace the head. It's still the same axe. You replace the handle. Is it still the same axe? None of that shit is the same anymore. It's kind of similar. Yeah, to the way we remember things. I think they change along the way, and they get bigger and they get more interesting. To be honest. So I do think there's that aspect of it. So Red, you had one more thing, I think.
A couple more things,
Okay,
but this one it's just a really short one. This next one. So I just woke up one night, couldn't get back to sleep, so I just wandered into the living room to watch some TV or something. And now this is going to age me a bit, but I was just sat down on the couch, and next to me was the phone, and it was a corded phone. And if any of you remember, when people are on the phone, sometimes they'll just absentmindedly twist it up in their finger.
Yep.
So it was doing that right in front of me. There was nothing touching it, and it was just coiling itself up. And that was it. I was like creeped out, noped out of there. I went back to bed.
Go on, Flame.
Do you think you could be psychic? Like
No,
you
I'm
made
too
that
retarded.
happen?
I
don't know,
believe
man.
that, especially like I said already, with shadow people particularly, I think some people are emotionally inclined to manifest things. I do believe that, without a doubt. And that's honestly, that's what I was about to ask, is like, you've had all the experiences. Like, you've checked all the boxes for childhood experiences, basically. Like, these are all the common ones. You've hit every mark. Most people don't. Most people only have a couple, maybe one. And I wonder why that is. And to me, my assumption is it has to be something to do with your family or your blood. That's the assumptions I usually make with all of these things.
Yeah.
Hard to say, but our water isn't fluorinated, so it could be that.
When you were young, did you manifest a poltergeist, and did your little sister get stuck into the TV?
I don't have a little sister, but
happen.
maybe I blocked that out.
All right,
Steven
so
Spielberg
all
was
right.
not involved here. These are all real stories.
For once.
Yeah, thank God.
No, but that is actually interesting what Yakov said about the psychic stuff, because I remember as a younger kid myself, my mom was from the hippie era, and she and my sisters used to try to do like little psychic experiments, and like with the thing with the, like on the string, the little circular metal guy, try to make the pendulum move. I mean, you might, I don't know, maybe you should look a little bit more into that. Maybe you have manifested some kind of something or other.
What about you, Matt? Have you manifested any powers?
I've manifested the ability to drink a lot of beer and make very good smoked pork.
Hell yeah.
All right. Did we have anything else, Red?
Yeah, a couple of things. So many years after all this happened, I was talking with one of our elders, and this just reminded me from your last interview that you did. Our village site is apparently built under a huge portal at the top of at the foot of a mountain where the portal is, and apparently that's one of the biggest portals on the island. We didn't really go into much detail on it, but
Is this a portal that you say you're on a reservation, right?
at the time I was, yes, and I was told that portal was huge, and it was a passing point between spirits going from this world to the next.
Was Listerine involved?
Oh, God.
Oh no!
I wish, because I would have had
God.
cleaner teeth.
So,
But,
or is this?
no,
it-
I do have something
Go.
serious to ask though. But so like do you know anything about the traditions of the shaman of that area? Are they able to go through this portal? Or
No, we're not that fancy with it.
okay.
So, is it implied that this would be where the little people would come from? I don't know if there's like ideas of Sasquatch. Is that where these things come from? Are there any ideas like that?
Yeah, that seems what he was implying. A lot of spirits come from there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I would be very curious. I want to know so much more about the other realm, whatever it is, the ethereal realm that exists on top of us. It's in every culture. Like, and honestly, I think the most detailed accounts probably come. I don't want to say definitively, but if you go to like Hinduism, there are so many accounts of people because of yoga, because of they manifest they do siddhanas, they manifest powers, cities as they call them. People claim to be able to go into the ethereal realms where there are different beings that are parallel to us, very similar to us in a lot of ways, but then made up from a whole different substance. And in this realm, there are animals, there's fish, there's birds, there's everything. All this stuff is there.
Amazing.
So I would be so interested in knowing more about this, especially because we feel like we've got so many little threads from it. Like they exist like in the rocks, and like what's a bigger rock than a fucking mountain? So the portal would be at the foot of the mountain, and for all intents and purposes, from our perspective, go into the mountain. Necessarily, if that's materially where you are or where you're not, that would be your perception, I would think. And then it's the same type of idea with pyramids and mounds and all of that, which end up being like man-made versions of this. And I don't know if it's maybe trying to cargo cult it to reenact it as a ritual, or if you're actually creating it yourself.
Blowing my mind, man.
Hey, man, just
Oh,
got all this
holy
shit
shit.
You're really on some deep shit right there.
right off the
Because,
cuff.
like,
Yeah, I really like
you know,
that. Oh my god,
yeah,
that was making me think.
it definitely lines up with some things that I've read about. Like you mentioned the pyramids. So apparently, underneath the pyramids in this area, not literally underneath the pyramids, but like in that realm that you're talking about, the halls of Amente, places like that. Um, so
Yes.
that is some deep shit that you're talking about.
Stories of
We might get shut down.
Hermes and the emerald tablets and
Yeah, dude.
fountains of immortality within mountains and all this. And then when you think the pyramids, they were, I think, a ritual chamber. They were for people to go in and be initiated into the mystery cult. So it is that entrance through the portal into the mountain, and then being able to come out alive and like with a whole new perspective. Like that's what makes you an initiate, whether it literally happens or you are made aware of it, just esoterically.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So like,
I think about that a lot too. If there's like different realms on top of realms, because
but
it would make
like,
a lot of sense. Like you were talking about with the pyramids and stuff. Like what if like what did you call the pyramids?
What the hell do we call the pyramids? Ritual
man,
chamber.
Yeah, like a ritual chamber trying to recreate something, and like it's man, I can't even really describe what I'm thinking right now, but that's utterly fascinating. If there's different yeah, sorry.
Red, would you like to go on?
Well, that's all I have.
Okay. Well,
Just
fantastic.
appreciate being able to give some content back after getting so much content over the years.
Oh, glad to have you, brother. You're one of the most
Thank you.
valued members of the community here. Active, never a face fuck, never fuck face, as it were. Whatever.
Fully
Just like
agree.
some of the people. Love you, buddy. So, yeah, I think that's it for this edition of Spooky Interviews. Thanks, everybody. All right.